Hey, everybody. It's our last week of the 5-second rule for book club. And just so you know, we are going to take next week off to give everybody a chance to get ready for Jubilee and a chance to get the book if you want to. So our next book is going to be Row the Boat by John Gordon and PJ Fleck. It's really, really good and it's an easy read. So if you want to get the book, now you have time. And if you just want to jump on and listen and be read to, we do that too. So you don't have to get the book. Morning, Angela. All right, we are going to start our last week of this with chapter 16, and it's Pursuing Passion. It says, there's a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. Makes a lot of sense, actually. Over the years, I've received lots of questions about how to find your passion and purpose. Not once have I ever been asked to help someone think about their passion. That's because finding your passion is an active process, and you'll find that the 5-second rule is an incredible tool as opportunities start to appear. What stops people from finding their passion is they can't get out of their thoughts and move into action. When you use the 5-second rule to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to start exploring and lean into opportunities as they appear, you'll be shocked where it leads. How do I explore? Hire the best guide you can find, your curiosity. Your curiosity is how your instincts get you to pay attention to what your heart really cares about. If you can't stop thinking about something, make that something your new hobby. Also, pay close attention to envy. If you find yourself jealous of someone else, explore that feeling. What aspect of their life are you jealous of? This may give you a clue into what you really want for yourself. Next, push yourself to take simple steps to explore the subject. Read about it, watch video tutorials, talk to people, take a class, write a plan. You'll be surprised by what happens over time. Your passion could be photography. When Chris first discovered the 5-second rule 4 years ago, he was the CIO at a bank and still is. And he had always loved photography. He used the rule to force himself to explore his passion, and 2 magazine covers and multiple awards later, he's a professional photographer. Maybe you're interested in launching a gourmet food business. It doesn't matter if you've never done it before. In today's world, you have so many resources at your disposal to help you explore. Take Eric as an example. He lives in Cambodia and had an idea to start an export business. He's pushing himself to learn everything he can by watching YouTube videos and reading books. That's how you discover your passion. You 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 explore until you bump into it. It will start as just an instinct. It always does. First, you take a class. A class leads to a certification. A certification leads to conversations. Conversations lead to opportunities. Small opportunities lead to larger ones. Maybe you'll want to share what you're learning with people at work, so you use the rule to push yourself to do it. That's when momentum kicks in. You'll curse me as things actually start to happen, but you'll thank yourself for finding the courage to trust your heart and explore what you find fascinating. Joe, a banker in London, is a fabulous example of how something small, like taking one class, can grow into something remarkable, like a whole new career. This story is an unbelievable example of how momentum builds from something small. And I am going to read this one because she doesn't talk about it. So it's Joanne McClellan. I did a presentation on limiting beliefs and an introduction to our maps of the world at my Learn team meeting of 8 people. I was nervous, but I did it as I'd recently qualified as a master NLP practitioner, and I wanted to share what I'd learned. When the presentation ended, my head of function walked up to me and said, "This is what you should be doing. You could make a career doing this." I currently work in banking. I'm a banker. To say I was buzzing after this and the other feedback I got made me feel awesome was an understatement. I got brave and decided to put the 5-second rule into action, so I went to my laptop and typed an email to one of the largest women's network in the United Kingdom to offer my services. I think I actually posted on your Facebook page that morning something like 5-second rule in action today. Long story short, they came back and said they'd love me to do a presentation to their Scotland division. Fast forward a couple weeks to Tuesday last week, and a very nervous me was, I'll be honest, cursing you in the 5-second rule as I was terrified. But I did the presentation, and you know what? I was so good. We have a waiting list of people who couldn't make it due to the line being blocked out, timing of the first session, and word of mouth on how good it was. So I've been asked to run a second session. I've also been approached about jobs, and people are asking me to help them work through their limiting beliefs and supper them with their goals or outcomes. I think that might be a British thing. All of this happened because of the 5-second rule and sending one email. Oh, I should also mention I gave Stop Saying You're Fine a shout out as one of my favorite books at the end of the presentation as people ask for books that has inspired me. This stuff works, and I can tell everyone to give it a go and see where it gets them, maybe even where they want to be, which is pretty cool. So as your exploration picks up momentum, you'll move into the next phase, actually pursuing your passion full time. At some point, the side business of photography will become your real business. Your presentation to the Bank of Scotland will become a full-blown speaking career. There's no magic formula for when to pull the trigger and turn a passion project into a passion-driven career or a major life change. It requires planning and some slow, deep thinking. If you're anything like the rest of us, you'll torture yourself for a while until you can't stand straddling your present life and the future one. Michael had a major passion that she wanted to turn into a company and had been wanting to do it for years, but just held back. She 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 pushed herself to announce the start of my new business. Now she has a reason not to hit that snooze button anymore. We all deserve to wake up so excited we can no longer want to hit that snooze button. If you're thinking about making the leap like her, make sure to be intentional about how you ask yourself the question. You need to ask yourself the heart first question. Am I ready to commit to this? Instead of the feeling first question, do I feel ready to commit to this? You'll never feel ready. The moment you answer yes to the question, am I ready to commit to this? You'll need to use the rule to give yourself that final push. Even when you're ready, it's not going to feel good when you do it. Just ask Todd in Australia. Todd has known for a long time exactly what he is passionate about, physical education. He's always dreamed of teaching it and having his own personal training business. As a high schooler, Todd knew that he wanted to pursue a degree in physical education, but his parents said, "Oh no, you can't do that." They pressured him to pursue a professional degree instead. 4 years later, Todd was a senior in a dual major program split between law and business. His heart was never in it. As Todd described it in an email, that little voice was constantly in the back of his head, silently echoing. Why did he stay in that major? Simple, his feelings. The thought of disappointing his parents overwhelmed him. Every single day, he thought about withdrawing and going to a different college to study physical education, but he felt paralyzed. Walking into the registrar's office and filling out paperwork is easy. Facing the disappointment of your parents is soul crushing. For almost 4 years, Todd had wanted to withdraw, but he didn't know how to face his fears or his parents. The 5-second rule is how he finally did it. Todd was sitting in a Law 513 lecture on advanced taxation law when he realized he was ready. As Todd put it, I can attest to you the dislike I had for such a program. I wanted to withdraw from it the moment I started, but what is perhaps most disturbing about the entire situation is that I had literally allowed myself to study a degree up to the final year before I decided I was entirely and completely done with hating my life. Todd could see the future. My parents would send me off to do my master's, and along I would go, living my life for everyone but me. He described the instinct to act and the 5-second decision that made it happen. Just start. I need to withdraw. I gathered up my books and stood up in the middle of class and left. His body was shaking, but he was moving straight to the registrar's office, where he unenrolled from the university. He then got in the car and drove 2 hours south of Brisbane to the Queensland University of Technology, where he applied for the degree of his dreams. That fateful Tuesday morning was 2 years ago. Todd is now 24 years old, halfway through his teaching degree, and has never had this much fun in my life. He's been accepted into the honors education program for next year, and as he puts it, I found my purpose. This is, in fact, exactly what I was supposed to be doing all along. As for his parents, yes, they were disappointed when he initially told them that he didn't want to be a lawyer, but they were way more disappointed by the fact that Todd had been scared to tell them and unhappy for so long. Excuse me.
Isn't that an interesting perspective on what parents do to their kids? Like, I cannot imagine what a different society we would live in if people were able to pursue what they actually had an interest in doing.
Yeah.
Not that it really plays into this at all. I mean, it's more.
Well, no, my oldest daughter went to college, started college, had part of as a scholarship, and then she was going to get a job. She went to college, and a week later, she withdrew, didn't say anything, and took her dad out to breakfast later that week, told him she had withdrawn from college, but she was afraid to tell me because my big thing had been she would be the first person on my side of the family to go to college, and she didn't want me to be upset.
Aw,
So he came home and he was like, Serenity doesn't want to finish school. And I said, well, if she'll just do this semester and see if she likes it. He goes, no, she already withdrew and got her money back. It was like, I said, what's she gonna do? And he goes, she wants to get married and have kids. That's all she wanted to do. And she's married, she has 3 kids, she's loves it. That's what she wanted. And she was probably in one of the worst degrees she could have been because she was very good at math. So they told her she'd be a good accountant. And since she didn't want to go to college anyway, she went into accounting because she didn't know what else to do. So yeah, she at least didn't wait until, 4 years later when she had the degree and we had spent all the money to say, this
right,
isn't what I wanted. Yeah.
interesting.
So, and then the rest of my kids were not quite like that. They were like, yeah, no, it's not what I want to do. And the only one that, Blake got a social work degree. And we actually tried to tell her not to do that because the only way you could do anything with social work is to get your master's and do the continuing education for years. And she got that 4-year degree and has been a server ever since. So there's that.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. Okay. This says, have faith. I believe you can make anything happen as long as you listen to your heart, do the work, and give up your timeline. One of my favorite books is the international bestseller, The Alchemist. It's one of the best-selling books of all time and has been translated into 80 languages. I've recommended it for more than a decade, and as I was writing this book, I bought myself a new copy to keep me inspired and remind me that the whole universe conspires to help you when you follow your heart. When I cracked open the 25th anniversary edition, I was blown away by a story in the foreword of the book. I had no idea that when The Alchemist was first published in Brazil, it failed miserably. When The Alchemist was first published 25 years ago in my native Brazil, no one noticed. A bookseller in the northeast corner of the country told me that only one person had purchased a copy the first week of its release. It took another 6 months for the bookseller to unload a second copy, and that was to the same person who bought the first. And who knows how long it took to sell the third. By the end of the year, it was clear to everyone that The Alchemist wasn't working. My original publisher decided to cut me loose and canceled our contract. They wiped their hands of the project and let me take the book with me. I was 41 and desperate. But I never lost faith in the book or ever wavered in my vision. Why? Because it was me in there, all of me, heart and soul. I was living my own metaphor. A man sets out on a journey dreaming of a beautiful or magical place in pursuit of some unknown treasure. At the end of his journey, the man realizes the treasure was with him the entire time. 41 and desperate, I got chills when I read that line. That's how old I was when I discovered the 5-second rule, and that's exactly how I felt. What I have come to realize is there is no expiration date on discovering and expressing the power of you. And as Kolho wrote in the foreword, it starts with a belief in yourself, and that belief is grounded in the courage to push yourself. I was following my personal legend, and my treasure was my capacity to write. And I wanted to share this treasure with the world. I started knocking on the doors of other publishers. One opened, and the publisher on the other side believed in me and my book and agreed to give The Alchemist a second chance. Slowly, through word of mouth, it finally started to sell. 3,000, then 6,000, 10,000, book by book, gradually throughout the year. The book became an organic phenomenon, and the rest is history. It is considered one of the 10 best books of the 20th century. When interviewers asked him whether or not he knew it would be a success, this is what he had to say. The answer is no. I had no idea. How could I? When I sat down to write The Alchemist, all I knew is that I wanted to write about my soul. I wanted to write about my quest to find my treasure. The answers are inside of you if you have the courage to listen. You're like some other people and like no other person. You have something remarkable to share with the world. It starts with listening to what's inside of you and ends with the courage to go where it leads. Follow it. You're good to go ahead and do the next chapter. It's don't tell people your dreams, show them. Act of courage is always an act of love. There are only 2 words of advice you need to improve any relationship. Say it. I was speaking at a sales meeting for a retail brokerage firm in Florida, and after a tall man named Don approached me. He was in his late 50s, had a beard, and was wearing a sport coat over his Madra shirt. He said he wanted to share something with me about my 5-second rule. Don had his own version of it, and it had changed his life. He had made a decision a few years ago that nothing important would be left unsaid. Then he shared a story about how, acting on instinct, he pushed himself to share something with his daughter that he had completely changed their entire relationship. Over the years, his daughter Amber and her husband had taken in family members who had fallen on hard times. They also volunteered every weekend in their community and had completed several service trips. Don told them he admired them. He admired how they lived their lives and the example that their lives provided the world. He added that he was so proud of the young woman Amber had become. And then he told me this. Right before I was about to say it, I was so afraid. Imagine that. I was afraid to say something because I was afraid to get emotional. He said that after the conversation, his relationship with his daughter was never the same again. They are now closer than he ever imagined, and the experience inspired him to live by this rule: leave nothing important unsaid. Intimacy takes courage. Risking getting emotional or upsetting someone so that you can express yourself is scary, but the result is magical. I experienced that same magic in a simple conversation with my father last fall. I was on my way to the airport, having just finished a speaking engagement in Miami, and I saw a text from my dad. Call me as soon as you can. That's odd, I thought to myself. I called the house and my mom picked up the phone. Hi, Mom. Just got a text from Dad asking me to call. Is everything okay? You should talk to him. Let me get him for you. She sat the phone down as I tried to catch her. Wait, Mom, what's going on? I could hear the kitchen floor creak as she opened it, door creak as she opened it, and yelled for my dad. Bob, Mel's on the phone. I had no idea what was going on. At first, I thought that I was in trouble. I sat in the back of the cab feeling like a 10-year-old who was about to get grounded. Isn't it amazing how quickly your mind can take you down the rabbit hole that something is wrong? Uncertainty had triggered my habit of worrying, and now I was inside the metal what if loop. Did grandma die? Did I do something wrong? Is he in financial trouble? It must be me. What did I do? Did you catch what happened? The uncertainty triggered my habit of worrying. In less than 5 seconds, I had convinced myself that my grandmother had died, that I had done something severely wrong, and that my father was deeply disappointed in me and I was about to get in major trouble. I heard the back door open and him walking toward the kitchen. He picked up the phone and was nonchalant as could be. Hey, Mel, thanks for calling. Where are you right now? I was freaking out on the other end of the line. I'm in Miami on my way to the airport. Your text scared me to death. Did I do something wrong? He chuckled and said, No, it's not about you, Mel. It's about me. I didn't want to tell you and your brother until I was sure. I almost dropped the phone. Are you going to die? Oh my God, you have cancer. He interrupted. Will you let me talk? I don't have cancer. I have an aneurysm and I need open brain surgery to remove it before it kills me. He went on to explain the whole story. He had had a bout of vertigo and collapsed when he was playing a round of golf. That part's not funny. Jim shooting the flies with the salt gun was amusing. I'm sorry. It was right off to the side. Let's see. He had had a bout of vertigo and collapsed while he was playing a round of golf. That led to an MRI, which revealed the aneurysm. They found it by mistake. He was having surgery at the end of the week at the University of Michigan. I sat frozen on the other side of the phone. My father-in-law had died from esophageal cancer. Within seconds of hearing my dad's story, I immediately thought about the day of my father-in-law's surgery. It was just a moment. The nurses were wheeling him off to surgery at Memorial Sloan Kettering in Manhattan, and just before they pushed him through the double doors, he looked back at all of us. He smiled and gave us a little wave. We all smiled and waved back, and I remember giving him a thumbs up. I remember feeling a pang of fear right at that moment. Then he disappeared through the swinging doors. We had no idea that that surgery was about to go horribly wrong and the complications would eventually kill him. I snapped back to the present moment in the back of the cab and listened to my dad. I pictured my father waving goodbye from a hospital hallway and I was afraid. I don't know why, but I really wanted to know if my dad was scared too. I had an instinct to ask him and immediately hesitated. I started thinking, don't ask that. It'll upset him. Of course he's scared, you moron. Keep it light and positive. Don't stress him out. That aneurysm could explode. That was the push moment. Leave nothing important unsaid. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dad, are you scared? There was silence on the other end, and I started to regret asking the question. I was not expecting to hear what he said. I'm not scared. I'm nervous, but I really trust my surgeon. You know, Mel, I actually feel kind of lucky. Lucky? That's not what I expected to hear. Yes, I have an opportunity to try and fix this thing before it kills me. And at the end of the day, if something happens, I have no regrets. Watching my mom take care of my dad after his stroke or watching Susie die of ALS was horrible. Quality of life is very important to me, and the quality of my life has been more than I could have ever wished for. As a kid, I always wanted to be a doctor, and I became one. Your mom and I have had a wonderful life together. You and your brother turned out basically, you and your brother turned out. I basically done exactly what I wanted to do with my life, and that's all you can ever ask for, that and more time to enjoy it. It was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever shared with my dad, and without the 5-second rule, I wouldn't have found the courage to ask the question. I just sat there in the back of that cab and took it all in. And then he added this. Actually, there's one thing I want to do, he said. I'd like to see Africa. And if I make it to 90, I want to jump out of a plane like George Bush did on his 90th birthday. I laughed. You will, Dad, you will. That conversation with my dad reminded me of something important. Waiting for the right time to get real in your relationships is a fool's errand. There's no right time to have the conversation, ask the hard questions, say I love you, or take time to truly listen. There is only right now. Sometimes it's not merely a hard question you need to ask, it's actually ending the silence between you. It had been years since Courtney and her relationship had let her relationship go with her father, but she'd been wanting to make amends. She didn't pass out or overthink it like she would have in the past. Instead, she used the 5-second rule to trust her instinct and just pick up the phone and call her dad. She just said out loud, 54321, and just hit call and did it. It only takes 5 seconds to change your life. Hiding is what Mike was doing in his marriage until he found the courage to 54321 to be more honest with himself. I'm talking to my wife again about subjects I would have rather just ignored. Not like they were going away because my head was in the sand or anything. And I'm being more honest with myself. Most of all, I like that. I may not be perfect, but I am worthy. I'm surprised by just how damn good that feels to be worthy. Mike just shared a very powerful secret. To feel worthy, you must first make your own instincts worthy of your attention and your effort. And Anthony was surprised that something so simple as having the courage to lean into what I normally shy away from could create such enormous change in his marriage, helping him to be closer to my wife and get his needs met. That something so simple could create such enormous change. That was surprising. I used to expect people to know my needs and would harbor resentment when my needs were not met, mostly with my wife. I thought all wives could read minds. Imagine my surprise. By using the rule to simply lean into what I normally would shy away from, I'm making great strides in a few areas of my life. I'm smiling as I type this. I'm closer to my wife and my needs are starting to be met. I had no idea that my silence was the problem. As Anthony said, he had no idea that my silence was the problem. Silence is always the problem. Deciding not to say what you feel creates what researchers call cognitive dissonance between what you truly believe in your heart and what you actually do in the moment. Those problems build up, and over time, they can break your relationship. That's what happened to Estelle during what she described as an ordinary moment in time. A seemingly stupid argument with her husband cracked a branch in the silent woods, and her response was immediate. I asked him for a divorce. Here's how she described it. My mind was suddenly crystal clear, and I used the 5-second rule to say it. It was now my choice to do it or allow my brain to pull the emergency brake. I chose in that moment to act. I asked for a divorce. In retrospect, that decision catapulted my life in a direction I knew I wanted to go, but always held back from myself. This is not to say it was easy. It absolutely has not been easy, but I have never for 1 second doubted my decision. In that pure moment of action, of truly choosing to act on what I knew was right and authentically me, I have found myself. There have been dark and sometimes lonely moments, but what surprises me is that in those moments, I never regret my choice to divorce. We all have moments throughout our day to act or choose. We sometimes hold ourselves back. We choose to be cautious and not act and not risk. I chose to act, and in those moments, I feel most alive. I found my soulmate, and more importantly, my true self. It's interesting because most of these things are all very positive. And when I think about divorce, I don't necessarily think of it as a positive thing most of the time, but sometimes there is that moment.
It's also interesting that they're telling you to talk about your feelings because if you don't, the silence creates cognitive. That's not how any of us were really raised. We weren't raised to talk about our feelings.
No, no, as a matter of fact, I was generally told that if what you were going to say was going to cause a problem, to skip it. Just go on. Yeah. Which would explain a lot of the issues in my first marriage. I got over it second time around. I was like, yeah. I said from the beginning that the rule was simple. I never said saying it would be easy. The truth is the shortest distance between two people, and it may very well save your relationship. Silence creates distance. Truth creates real connection, as Natasha discovered. Natasha was overwhelmed with life after her mother died suddenly. Her optimism evaporated, and she could only see more negatives in the future. She was worried about her relationship with her boyfriend and used the rule 54321 to speak from the heart about how she felt, for real, that their relationship was unsustainable. She spoke about how she really felt, and the outcome was amazing. Instead of blowing up the relationship, the truth brought them closer. They're now engaged. We often fail to appreciate the profound power held inside the smallest moments of our relationship as our days race by. I recently had something happen that reminded me of the importance of slowing down, being present, saying it, and tuning into your heart when it speaks to you. A man sent me a Facebook message after hearing me speak and asked me to check out a memorial page for a family friend named Josh Woodruff. He felt that Josh was the epitome of a person who lived his life to the fullest and embodied the 5-second rule. On instinct, I clicked on the link to the memorial page on Facebook. The first thing I saw was a post from a woman named Mary. It was a beautiful post about the intimacy and connectedness we all want in life and how we pull back from it for the silliest reasons. A week before Josh was killed by a hit and run driver in New Orleans, Mary had seen him in the grocery store but didn't say anything to him. I'll let her tell you the story. Josh and my son Jared had been friends since second grade. We considered the Woodruffs some of our dearest and most admired friends. The week before Josh died, I saw him twice in the grocery store. The first time he was quite a ways away, and I thought, oh, there's Josh. He must be home for Christmas. But I didn't say anything to him because I didn't want to holler across the store. The same week, I saw him again with a big grin and stocking cap on, talking to someone. He was much closer, and I still didn't say anything because I had run to the store quick with no makeup and dressed horrid, just hoping I didn't see anyone I knew. I thought odd that I would see him twice in 1 week, so I prayed for his family and their Christmas holiday. When I heard he died, I felt so bad I hadn't talked to him. I didn't know it would be the last time, but my last image of him was that huge light up the world smile. Last week I was in Target and I saw a friend, Jenny, quite a ways away. I started to walk out the door and I remembered Josh. I was in a hurry and I didn't see any reason to stop and talk. Then I thought again of Josh. I turned around and hollered down the aisle, "Hey, Jenny." Mary's post is an incredible reminder for all of us. Sometimes there is no next time. When your heart speaks, say it. I reached out to Josh's mom, Karen, and she shared a story about Josh with me. Josh was not afraid of other people's emotions. When he was a teenager, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. I knew we were losing her. One day I sat in the family room by myself to think and to cry. Josh came in and asked me what was wrong, and then I locked me. He didn't look away or fidget. He just sat there and listened. From that day, we started moving from just a mother and son to a friend-friend relationship because he took the time to listen to me as a human being. I'm sad I never got the chance to meet Josh. He sounded like an amazing man. As Karen described him, Josh was the epitome of doing. He took his intentions and acted on them. After his death, we said that he lived life without hesitation. She closed her email to me by attaching a text that Josh had sent to her and her husband on New Year's Eve, just hours before he was killed. As Karen put it, he thought, he sent, and we will treasure it for the rest of our lives. Text is, before the night begins, just wanted to say Happy New Year, and I'm so ridiculously thankful for you. Very much pumped to see what 2016 has for us. Leave nothing unimportant unsaid. 54321, go ahead and say it. I think one of the things she does say in here is that it's not as easy as it sounds. I think it's really easy to not say things instead of saying them. Because, if you're afraid of the conflict, if you don't say anything, then the other person doesn't even know there is conflict. I don't know. Wait, Jeff, Angela, Christine? Hello?
I tend to not say things. And usually, and see, here's the problem with that. I don't say anything and then I let it build up.
And then you say it
And
all.
all of a sudden, yeah, it's like dynamite gets thrown into the nitroglycerin factory and it all goes to hell.
I think that's what happens, whenever people say, they argue and people bring up things from like 10 years ago. I think that's where that comes from, is because 10 years ago, they probably didn't say anything,
Yeah.
but it's been there that whole time. So, it- whenever you spill the coffee on the floor, instead of, be more careful, you're always spilling things you read through. You ruined my dress 10 years ago. Like, what? So yeah, but I think it is really important. I think people's lives would be a whole lot different if they said things that they were, and I am not condoning saying everything you think. That would be a disaster. There's a difference between letting everything come out of your mouth and letting important things come out of your mouth, I think.
The infamous question, do these pants make my ass look big? Sorry. That should never be yes.
The answer should always be, that's such a cool color. Or what brand are those? Followed by, you should buy more of those, or yeah, those are nice, but maybe you should look into this kind. The answer should never, yes. Does this dress make me look fat? Mm-mm. No, never. Okay, I think this is like the last chapter. There's a lot of pictures in this chapter, so if you don't have the book, and they're important pictures, I'll hold it up and you can see them. Or Jeff can hold it up. He's got the book. When I get to those pages that I'm reading, you hold up the pictures and we'll see if they can multitask and look at both of us at the same time. Okay, all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Walt Disney said that. Mr. Dream. All right, you've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. The Wizard of Oz. Very interesting movie. Today, something incredible is going to happen. A woman will quit her job because she truly hates it. She's scared, but she'll do it anyway. A man will call off his wedding, knowing he'll be hated for it. A 56-year-old veterinarian will start her first business. An app developer will launch her first product, and a 15-year-old will start writing his first cookbook. A banker will apply for an executive role that she's always wanted. She doesn't feel 100% qualified, but that's not going to stop her from throwing her hat in the ring. And a man in a bar will leave the safety of his friends to walk across the room to approach an attractive woman. Initially, he'll feel like he's dying inside, but it will turn out way better than he anticipated. They know they might fail or fall flat on their faces, but they do it anyway. They push themselves forward despite the feelings that scream no. They feel afraid, but they still move. The question is why? The answer is simple. They know the secret to greatness. When your heart speaks, honor it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. They also know the alternative is that it is terrifying. Missing out on what you are meant to become, living on autopilot, and swimming right past all the magic, opportunity, and the joy that your life has to offer. And the greatest risk of all, dying before you've actually pushed yourself to live. Dan in California is not going to let that happen. He's just registered for summer classes in finance. The idea of being a 44-year-old freshman is daunting, but he does it anyway because never too old is what it means to be great. In Honolulu, Shirley is pushing herself to start living again after losing her husband. She's let too many 5-second windows be wasted over the last 4 years. Now she's practicing everyday courage. She has started with something small, beginning to walk again. That one change has opened doors that has been closed for years. Oh, she's walking in a park. Okay. In Santa Monica, California, Julie used the 5-second rule to push herself to make calls that made her nervous and got 2 things: greater confidence in herself and $5,000 to help cure pancreatic cancer. In New Delhi, India, Pulkit is taking so many risks using the 5-second rule that it's helping him grow in amazing ways. He's now always giving the best shot at what he does, thanks to the rule. And he has a piece of advice for Dan, our 44-year-old freshman. Keep pushing. Pulkit knows the power of everyday courage because he just finished his bachelor's degree. After a high-stress week at work, Kathleen wanted to just kick back and feel the buzz of a well-deserved drink and not deal. But she 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and drove past the familiar cars at the bar. It was a white knuckle drive home, but in that moment she won. As Kathleen put it, however small that drive was, it felt like a victory, and it truly was. I'm going to read this one. This Friday, while driving home, all I could think about was the 5-second rule and the idea that you have to push your way through certain situations to get unstuck. I have a significant commute, so I get some good thinking time in. The industry I work in is very high stress, very deadline oriented. My hours are oddball. I'm out of work by 2 in the afternoon. So on this Friday before a holiday, I would usually go meet friends at a local pub, have a few drinks, and bitch and moan about the week. Lately, I felt as though the weekly bitch session has become nothing but an excuse for a brain numb, as I felt as though I was avoiding my life and hiding behind Bombay Sapphire. Although delicious, the nectar of the gods is not a good place to play hide and seek. While getting off the exit that would bring me to the pub, I started laughing. So this is what it means to push through. And no, I do not feel like it. I realized what you said was 100% on. No, I did not feel like going home, looking at my finances, dealing with my who cares attitude about how I live. I wanted to kick back, feel the buzz of a well-deserved drink, and not deal. But I did. I saw all of the familiar cars in the parking lot and drove by. Trust me, that was a white knuckle drive. However small that drive was, it was a victory. I came home, turned on my laptop, looked at my finances, made a map. Like you, I'm a runner. I was training for an ultra marathon when I was injured, the dreaded Achilles. I quit exercising, period. I hate the gym, hate it. But I've decided to go back a little at a time. I still hate it. After deciding to get my act together, I asked fellow runners in a local forum to help finding a doctor. After seeking this specialist, she told me the issue with my Achilles is fixable and I should be out racing again by spring 2017. This email was also part of the 5-second rule. I don't know if you'll ever see it, but I wrote it and sent it. In Minnesota, Kelly has made a heart first 5-second decision after years of dreaming about it. She's moving to France. Now that she's decided, the fear has disappeared, just like Rosa Parks said it would, and she'll use her brain to figure out the details instead of allowing fear to hold her back. My pages will not separate. Okay. In London, England, Steve was suffering from PTSD and thinking about ending his life as he rode on a ferry. His instincts told him to get help about the 5-second rule kicked in, and he moved away from the railing and walked toward a steward working on the ferry. It took the lowest moment of his life to admit just how lost in depression he had become. But in less than 5 seconds, he 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and discovered the courage to save his life. And finally, James. Steve's story hit James close to my heart. James lost his baby brother to suicide a year ago. As James wrote, I wish my brother took 5. I can never change that, but I can change myself. Using the 5-second rule, he has found the courage he needs to wake up and start living again. It's time for me to move on, back to my passion, back to my running. James made a 5-second decision. He's running a 100-miler, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in memory of his brother Patrick. Yes, you can move mountains. Whatever is happening right now, this is it. This is your life, and it's not going to begin again. You can't change the past, but in 5 seconds, you can change your future. That's the power of everyday courage. When your heart speaks, honor it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move. One moment of courage can change your day. One day can change your life, and your life can change the world. There is greatness in you. The time to reveal it is now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So that is the end of her book and could be the beginning of something amazing. I don't know, like last week, Ellen challenged everybody to start with small things and see if they worked up to bigger things. Did anybody jump on that?
No, I forgot.
Forgot. Sometimes I think we do this stuff though without actually mentally knowing that we're doing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I mean, we all do stuff every day that we'd rather not do. I'm assuming.
That's a good point.
I mean, maybe not.
Well, it's one of those, like when you said about Ellen challenging us, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, all right, so what big revelation do I have? And it doesn't always have to be a big revelation. It could just be something simple.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about the end of this book. Like the instances that she put out there were all really big things. You know, somebody not committing suicide, somebody, you know, losing a family member and stuff. But it's not always those huge things that you have to 5 4 3 2 1 through. I think sometimes it's all the little things that are going to make the biggest difference. So I I mean, most of the little things are what hold us back. It's the little things that keep you from doing the big things. So I just think that it's a good place to start. If you don't have any major changes that you feel like you need to make in your life, you could start with the smaller ones and 5 4 3 2 1 that. And sometimes it's just like doing the dishes or starting a little laundry because you have to get up and go do it. And it's not always what you want to do. So
Because you're not going to get up and start, like you're not suddenly going to start running a 5K if you've not, you know, started out. Not that I'm ever going to do that. It's probably an odd example for me to even use, but you don't start doing anything like that if you've not started training. Let's put it that way.
yeah, and we had talked about this one time before where sometimes the things that other people think we should want to do isn't anything we even want to do. Like I admire people that do the 5Ks. There's no part of me that wants to do that. I even when I was younger and I was not a runner. That was just not me. Um, there were things I wanted to do that I've never done. And I suppose it's not too late, but I would have to really think about it and decide if it's just something that I thought I wanted to do at one point, or if it is something that's a passion that I would really still like to do. And I think as we get older, maybe you push some of that stuff back and try and convince yourself that it really wasn't something you really wanted to do. It was just a passing thought. So I don't know. That's one of those things you have to think about.
Isn't that a form of procrastination? I didn't really want to do that, so I'm just going to sit here.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it could go either way, really.
Yeah, I think you come up with a lot of different excuses. Like there comes a certain age in your life where you start just giving yourself the excuse that you're too old to start now. You know, and then I watched the Olympics last night and that 46-year-old woman from wherever was still doing gymnastics. She didn't make the cut, but you know, we were talking about it and I was and Pam said, and she's still doing gymnastics. I said, Lord, she's 46 and she's still in one of those outfits. I mean, yeah.
Truer words.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like this book. I probably read this book about once a year just to go back through it because I forget and I read it and think of something else that I should be 5 4 3 2 1ing instead of just not doing. But so it's been a fun book. It took us a long time to get through it because there were days whenever it's summer and sometimes people can't get on and there are things going on, but everybody's going to get back into the routine now. School's getting ready to start over again. So, Angela, you weren't on. We're going to do Row the Boat next. We don't have book club next Monday. It's Jubilee week. So if you're not registered for that, feel free. And I got my box yesterday, which is sitting out in the garage because I know better than to bring it in the house.
What's in it?
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's in the garage. I took a picture of it, put it on my team page. And I was like, hey, it came. But yeah, so but then we will start Row the Boat the Monday after that, which what I say that was the 9th. You would think.
That's the 9th.
The 9th. Okay. So the 9th, we will start row the boat. Ellen is setting up a fair today. Lori had the nerve to go on vacation. So that's where they're at this morning, but I'm glad you guys got on. Christine, I hope you could hear us. Your thing said connecting to audio the whole time. So I hope you could hear what we were doing. And you guys have a amazing Monday. We've got leaders meeting tonight. We've got, tomorrow at noon is the opportunity event on the studio page. And then Wednesday night is the managers, the cliff climbers. And Thursday will be Tupper Thursday. So there you go. Write that all down so you have it all under control. And I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for getting on. I'm going to stop the recording if I can find
Thanks,
it.
Jenny.